Hi, this is Kathy Godwin, Risk Membership Liaison for Tau Beta Sigma. And today I'm going to talk to you about risk management education, active membership, prison, and you. So that got your attention, right? So you're thinking to yourself, wow, prison, it's kind of a big deal. So I'd like to ask all of you to have a few things handy for today's presentation. One would be the current Tau Beta Sigma Guide to Membership Education. Another would be the current Tau Beta Sigma Chapter Operations Handbook, and also the most current edition of your campus student handbook. These resources are often available online if you don't have them, so please do take a look and have those available. The end game of this presentation, what's the point? We need some learning outcomes. So we want to be able to give you the tools that will help your chapter continue to support our ideals and mission, be proactive and not reactive about risks, continue to support the past, present, and future of the organization. Whenever we have risks, it puts our organization at risk overall. So we would like to protect our organization and ensure that it's here for others going forward. How will you or someone in leadership know what to do or how to recognize a risk management issue? Just going to go over a basic outline for some of the topics for our risk management education. First, we do some basic foundations. Then we'll talk a little bit about hazing, alcohol and substance abuse issues, injury, and then who and how to ask for help, because that's the question that comes up. Now that you understand it, how can you get help and how can you make sure that you're doing the right things? So a little bit about the basics. Sometimes it's really just as simple as using your brain and your heart before acting. Just take 5 more seconds before you do that activity and make sure it's really meeting the goals that you need it to meet and that everyone is safe and our organization is safe. I'm not going to tell you that you can't have fun, but just think a little bit before you do some of the activities. And there's a few phrases that I will repeat in online presentations, in-person presentations, and when I'm talking to you. One of them, practice safe shenanigans. Just like I said, you can still have fun. Shenanigans are going to happen. Just be a little bit safe about it. Don't be stupid. Again, just think a little bit before you act. Those 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 minutes that you process before you actually do an activity are really going to help us prevent some of the issues that come up. I also want you to remember that you're representing every member of this organization every day, whether you wear your pen or not, whether you wear your letters or not. You've made a choice to become a part of this organization, and therefore you represent every one of us. And lastly, every day try to live by our ritual and ideals. If you can keep those things in mind, then you're going to be fine on most of the risk management, and it's not quite as scary of a thought. There's some basics that you can always fall back on. Some of the foundations. Why do we care about risk management? We do want to ensure that this organization exists for you and for our alumni and for our future members, so that's part of why we care. Also, if you take a look at our ideals, what do you see in there that says we care about each other in this organization? Just think through it. Think about the 8 essential factors and 5 qualities. What are some of those things that you can kind of think about? And let's just be honest, we care because you're a person, you're a human being, and we want to make sure that you're safe. So why are there questions and not a list of what chapters can't do? So we have at times in the past had lists of what chapters can and can't do for activities and what was and wasn't considered hazing. And then a chapter would do something else that caused an issue that was actually a risk management issue and was hazing. Let's say the list said you can't tie someone to an anchor. Well, because it didn't say you couldn't tie someone to a tree, maybe someone thought that was okay. So we don't do lists because sometimes we'll miss something because it's not actually specifically written, so then people think they can. We just can't make a list that covers everything that's out there. That's why we ask some of the questions, and that's why I ask you to think a little bit more about the basics and those foundations so that we can kind of go back to it. It's not as daunting. Is it hazing? Is it not? Is it risky? Is it not? So instead of having a list of, here's 100 things you can and can't do, just be able to think through it. Is it something that represents the ideals of the organization? Is it something that other people who wear my letters, who wear the same pen, would be proud of? Those are the things to think about instead of that list. How can students learn more about hazing rules and laws for Tau Beta Sigma in their school? You can review the risk management policy of your institution. Those are available online. You can ask your dean of students, ask the administrator responsible for organizations on your campus. You really should also review the state laws that are in your state that would impact your college. Talk to your director of bands. They actually, they care about you, they care about their bands, they also care about their career. And if they don't have an answer, work with your director of bands to help find an answer so that you're all educated in the area. Reach out to members of the Tau Beta Sigma National Leadership Team. We have great leaders who have a lot of information on what is and isn't hazing, and can kind of help you talk through that so we can have an educational moment so that we can work together. So please do contact us so that we can help you. So how do you know if it's hazing or not? How are you going to be able to recognize if it is? So I'm going to give you some questions that you can ask so that you would know. Because like I said, I can't always get into a list of what is and isn't hazing. So it's easier for me to ask you some questions so that you can think through, is this the right thing for me to do? Is this the right thing for myself, for the future members of our organization, for our entire sorority? So let's go through a couple of those questions. Will the activity achieve one or more of the predetermined goals of the membership education program? You know what the goals are for your membership education program. Just think through, is it going to actually achieve those goals before you're going to do the activity? Would you be willing to tell your chapter sponsor about the activity? If you find yourself not wanting to tell your sponsor about what's happening, that's maybe a time to stop and ask the question again and have a discussion with your sponsor about the activities you're considering. Would you be willing to perform this activity in front of a university administrator? So if your university president or vice president of student life or academic affairs showed up to this activity, would you be fine with that? Would you be able to say, yes, here is everything that supports the ideals of our organization and of this institution. We are proudly representing the institution. Would you be willing to send the parents of the prospective members involved a snapshot of this activity? It's a really important question for you to think about because, parents do care, families care about what's happening. Are you willing to have photographic evidence of this that you would send on to this person's family? Would you be prepared to go to court to defend the merit of this activity? And that seems like a big step. I just said the parents and there's pictures, but that is actually one of the things that can happen if we do some of the activities that have been done in the past. If we go into hazing areas, if we have alcohol issues and substance issues, then we do have the possibility of civil and criminal charges being filed. So are you willing to stand up in court and defend the reasons why you did this activity? Would you be willing to share a written description of this activity for other chapters to use? So I've heard it from some chapters that they can't tell another sister what they're doing in their chapter because it's their school's tradition or their chapter's tradition. But when you think about it, we're all part of Tau Beta Sigma. We all go through the same rituals. We all go through and know the same information. So we should be able to share that information. So if you're not able to share it, is it something that you really should be doing? And I have had people say they're not willing to share, and this question's brought up a really great discussion for those chapters. Would you feel ridiculous doing this activity? Really think to yourself, would you be okay if you yourself were doing the activity? And some of you may say, sure, I think it would be fun, but would you be willing to do it and have your future employer see it, to again defend it in court? Would you feel ridiculous doing it? Just think through that a little bit before you do anything else. If there's the slightest question in anyone's mind about the activity, there's a quick and definite answer. Don't do it. It is hazing. So anytime you have these questions, stop, think through it, discuss it, ask for help, because we want to help you before it happens. So there's usually a few hazing myths that are out there. So I just kind of want to cover a couple of those. One that I really like to kind of go through is they signed a form saying it was okay. I went through it, so they should too. Or they aren't real members if they aren't hazed. I've heard this referred to as the wood versus paper argument. The class forms a bond by going through hazing together. That's not true, and we're going to go through some of the specifics, but a membership candidate did it to another membership candidate or an active, or it's only considered hazing if it's done to a membership candidate. So they signed a form saying it was okay. This does not exempt you from hazing. This just becomes a piece of paper that can be presented in court as evidence that you hazed someone. They now have a form that says, I agree to do this. Anytime that's been presented in court before, it's been used as evidence to say, yes, it was hazing, due to the way that organizations work, and hazing is considered a power structure. So it just becomes a piece of evidence instead of a way that you're covered and things you don't have to worry about it. I went through it, and so they should too. Stop yourself and think. If you were wronged, is it appropriate to wrong someone else? I think the answer for anyone that I know, the answer would be that it's not appropriate. So let's kind of think through that. They aren't real members if they aren't hazed. So the wood versus paper argument, that's actually false. Real members are based on living by our ritual and our ideals. It's not a matter of who went through a torturous experience. It's a matter of, are you living by our ritual? Are you living by our ideals? Do you go through a membership education process? That is actually what makes us real members. I do hear that class forms a bond by going through hazing together. Higher education studies and personal statements from those hazed show this to be false. If anything, it actually shows if any bonding does occur for the class, it's usually not a bond that helps the entire chapter. It helps one class be united against the rest of the chapter. So there's a lot of animosity that happens in that case. And there tends to be a lot of, how does this make me a better sister by you treating me poorly? So the members tend to leave when they realize this is how others are treated. So studies have been done in this area, and it is not true. I do hear the membership candidate did it to another membership candidate or active. Again, it's power structure seen in the organization by institution, organizations, and courts has shown that there's still an implied force or lack of choice to do the activity. So that is actually a myth. Please don't use that as a reason to do it. It's only considered hazing if it's done to the membership candidate. That's one of the other things I hear. This is also false. Active membership hazing is a thing. It does happen, and we need it not to happen for our organization. So that is a myth. Just please don't do it. I think another one of my favorite topics that I hear, or my favorite reasons that I hear for it being done is, but it's tradition. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes something a tradition. And I'm going to let you know that over time working with Tau Beta Sigma and other organizations, I've heard this, and I've known some of these organizations for, in some cases, decades. And I know that some of the traditions weren't around for as long as some people say. I've known when they didn't exist. So the first thing to know is just because it's tradition doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. So it typically will take, at a college or university, it will take about 3 years for a tradition to take root. So I'm going to explain by using groups of students. So let's just say it happens to an incoming class as freshmen. That's group one. The active members at the time decide that they're going to start a new thing, and it's going to become, they want to ask the membership candidates to do something completely different. So it happens to these incoming class as freshmen. They're the group one. It happens to the next class of freshmen that comes in, so group two, but group one are now sophomores. They see it repeat. It is all they've known. They saw it when they were freshmen. They haven't seen anything else. Happens to the next class of freshmen, so now we're on year 3. Group 1 are juniors. Only the seniors that maybe joined later in their college career know that it was not, know that it was new. So it's something that you're realizing year 3, we really only have a few people that don't know that it's not a tradition. So then it happens to the next class. So now group 1 is seniors. Every active member that's there has had it happen to them. So now every one of them can honestly say, that's how it's always been done, or it is a tradition, except in reality, people just 1 or 2 years out of college know that it wasn't a tradition before. So it takes very little time for it to happen. If you are on a community college campus, it takes even less time. So we're going to take a break from hazing and move on to alcohol and substance issues. Did mention really early on that you should check through some of the resources. Check the resources from our organization, from Tau Beta Sigma's website, from our publications, and also please check with your institution regarding alcohol and substance issues. Many institutions have educational programs to help students with education in the areas of alcohol and substance abuse. Please use them. Colleges and universities realize the responsibilities and the liabilities, and they also realize that, you know, as students are coming into college, it's a time that some of these substances are being tried and tested. So if you do have any questions, please use the resources at your university if they're offered, or use community resources. If you're not finding any, please let someone in leadership know. You may be legally allowed to have the alcohol or substance you use, but I want you to think about a couple of things. Should you be using it at an event? Should you take pictures during the use of the substance and then post it on social media? You know, if you're thinking, hey, we're just at a regional meeting for our organization, so there's just several of us and we're kind of done with business, but we're all still hanging out and wearing our letters, and I've decided that we're gonna all stand around a keg. Should we take pictures of that? Should we be posting that on social media? Realize that you are representing every member of this organization every day, whether you wear your pen or not, whether you wear your letters or not. So even if you take your letters off, even if you take your pen off, you are still a member of Tau Beta Sigma. So think about that when it comes to the actions that you're taking. Please do ask for help if you need it. If you're having any issues with addiction, please ask for help from your institution, from medical facilities. Please ask for help from your friends, from your family. And if you know of people in your chapter, people in your life that are having issues, please intercede and talk to members of your chapter. So accidents happen. They are accidents. But sometimes there are situations that could have been avoided. Let's say you're keeping students out too late. You might end up setting up a situation where somebody's sleep deprived and driving home and then gets in an accident. Also setting up antagonistic situations. An example of that that's often used that I've seen come up in our organization is stealing or retrieving a mascot. During one mascot stealing event, a member of the organization was injured to the point of needing stitches. And they were only a bystander. They were shoved into a door frame during the chase. And the interesting part about it is their chapter was neither the chapter that had the mascot stolen or did the stealing. They truly were just on the side, but they're the one that got pushed into a door frame. So they ended up in the ER and needed to have stitches. But the thing is that that conversation with their parents from the ER was probably just a little bit interesting. So while you think it's in good fun to steal a mascot, think through what could happen when you're doing it, and how either the stealing or the retrieving once it's stolen might lead to some issues. That's where we talked about earlier where, can we try to avoid some of the accidents? If you can try to think through it a little bit first. It could even be that you are at a district convention and see someone across the room and you think to yourself, I'm gonna run and jump across all of the chairs that are set up and go hug them as fast as possible. Just try to think through it a little bit. Could you safely get there and take a few minutes longer so that we don't have the accidents happen? So again, just don't be stupid. Practice those safe shenanigans. I want you to have fun, but I also want to see you being safe so that we can enjoy the bond that we have. I'm going to talk a little bit about the consequences because we need to. I did title it Active Membership, Prison, and You. So we do need to keep the fact in mind that there are consequences. Many of you know that people die from, you hear about stories of alcohol, so you know not to do it, but sometimes something as innocuous as drinking water. People do die from being forced to drink too much water in a certain period of time. People also can have severe food allergies that you don't know about that can cause severe reactions. So, there are situations where you think something is not a big deal, but it could actually be a major problem for the individual. Hazing members of organizations physically has led to death and injuries. Mentally hazing someone has led individuals to need therapy and has caused previous trauma to come to the surface again. So sometimes I've heard someone say, well, but we didn't hit them. Mentally and emotionally causing pain for someone, if you're putting them down, if you're bullying them in another way, then that's still actually hazing. So it does cause harm, and we do have cases that I've seen where people did need therapy and previous trauma has come to the surface. So again, please realize hazing can have long-lasting effects. Higher education institutions, organizations, legislatures, and the general public have moved a needle previously at its all in good fun to zero tolerance. You may see an old movie where hazing happens and it's just what happens in college. That is not the environment we are in, so it's not all in good fun, and we are at a zero tolerance level for most institutions, legislatures, and the public. Hazing can lead to individual sanctions from the national organization. So if you do haze, you could be placed on probation, or you could be suspended, or you could be expelled. Your chapter's charter for an action made by the group or an individual, your chapter's charter could be taken. Your chapter could be closed because of hazing. Your educational institution may also choose to impose sanctions on either individuals or the entire chapter. And that could mean closing your chapter. It could mean suspending you as a student. You could be on probation as a student. You can even be expelled from your college for hazing. I'll talk a little bit about insurance. So we do have insurance as an organization. So I want you to keep that in mind, that when you're paying your dues and you're realizing that we're covered under an insurance plan, that's really helpful for us as an organization. Here are some of the potential issues. The reputation of Tau Beta Sigma could be tarnished, which may keep future members and colonies from becoming part of the organization, along with losing current membership. While we have insurance paid with your dues, any claims that come up could cause an increase in those dues. So let's say that, for example, $30 of your dues was insurance, and we needed to do a 40% increase because that's what the insurance required us to do. Your dues would go up $12. That's just because of one insurance claim. So realize that that increase spread across over 130 chapters, spread across all of the members we have. It's a huge increase in cost. So please keep that in mind as you are considering the activities you do. Tau Beta Sigma and the insurance companies can choose to exclude you from coverage due to violations. This means any criminal or civil costs would be covered by you, including tapping into any personal insurance from parents or guardians. So realize that Tau Beta Sigma might end up being covered, but if you choose to act outside of our risk policies, our organization and our insurance company may choose to exclude you from coverage. So now you have so many things that you're thinking about where it's like, I shouldn't haze, be careful, don't get involved in accidents, be smart when it comes to alcohol, understand substance abuse, all of these different issues. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information. So let's go with help and proactivity. Ask for help from your district counselors, your CVAs, your national officers, your band directors, and institutions if you need it. If you have any questions, please ask. All of these people are here to help, so please ask for it. For your sake and for all of us, including those doing something wrong, report situations. Sometimes we can take care of incidents through education before it escalates to something criminal or causing greater sanctions. So just some quick risk management education reminders. Practice safe shenanigans. Want you to have a good time, but be smart about it. Don't be stupid. I know it's really basic. I don't think any of you are dumb, but just use those minds that you have and think for a few seconds longer, a few minutes longer. Just don't be stupid about your choices. Realize that you are representing every member of this organization every day, whether you wear your pen or not, whether you wear your letters or not. And every day, try to live by our ritual and ideals. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, my information is included. Again, I'm Kathy Godwin, Risk Management Liaison for Tau Beta Sigma. Thank you for listening to this risk management education presentation.